I'm psyched. Now we're talking about Nightfall 4 at Old Tucson Studios. So I think we're all wondering about some of the questions that we left in Nightfall 3. What is the condition of Dr. Hyde being a revenant? I don't know. But he has superpowers now. And what about the condition of Marietta being pregnant with Hyde's child? She had a miscarriage. Okay. What about Josie? What about Josie? What about the silver bullets? What silver bullets? You know the silver bullets? Okay, so not all of the questions are answered with Nightfall 4. But nevertheless, Nightfall 4 would help establish itself to Tucson, Arizona as its southwestern Halloween event. So let's get right into it. This would be the first year without Jonathan Minks. Jonathan Minks would go out and pursue other ventures in entertainment. The rehabilitation would still be scaring guests, but the C.P. Huntington train would have a new venture added to Nightfall. This year it would be a haunted train ride. Basically, the train would go around the park and you would get a narration, while at the same time some unexpected surprises. This year the story revolved around two escaped convicts from Goulliard. By the time you got to the back of the park in the outskirts, you would end up meeting up with them. Also, this year would play a significant difference with the bloodletting show. This year it would not be the art of science. This year it would be ghastly science. The main aspect here is that ghastly science would play a significant role to the storyline. So technically you had 3 stories instead of 2. So let's begin. The story begins with a stagecoach coming into the town of Nightfall. It drops off 2 individuals, Professor Mortimer and Rebecca Chandler. The professor has come to Nightfall to gain information to develop a report. Rebecca Chandler is in search for her brother, George, the mute inmate from Goulliard. George's character appeared in early Nightfalls. The reasoning for him being mute, I believe, is more psychological than physical. The stagecoach takes off, and Marietta, Josie McFarlane, and Sam try to go after it, but it's out of reach. They then meet up with the 2 outsiders, and believe that they're in cahoots with Dr. Hyde, so a battle ensues. Then they realize that they have no idea of what's going on in this township. Once they begin discussing the conditions of the town, Dr. Jebediah Hyde comes in. With an explosion! Dr. Jebediah Hyde appears with 2 new assistants, Maximilian and Inspector Hammond, who I believe is in cahoots with the government. So Dr. Jebediah Hyde and all of his experiments are funded by the government. That doesn't surprise me. Dr. Jebediah Hyde then begins to assist the new arrivals, and this leads into ghastly science. The same aspect from the art of science is in ghastly science. The difference is Rebecca Chandler interrupts much of the symposium due to the condition of her brother George. She then begins to question Dr. Hyde's practices. This doesn't go very well for Dr. Hyde. Meanwhile, Professor Mortimer is gaining all this information, and he is beginning his report. At the end of ghastly science, Dr. Jebediah Hyde brings Marietta in and hypnotizes her to commit to the idea of marriage. This leads into the conclusion to Nightfall 4, the conflict. Professor Mortimer and Rebecca Chandler are taken into custody, where they will then be committed to the asylum. They, as well as Josie McFarlane, George, and Crazy Sam, and Duncan as the Reverend, are about to take part in the ceremony to wed Dr. Jebediah Hyde and Marietta Toomsley. Toomsley? So Rebecca Chandler, Professor Mortimer, Josie McFarlane, and Crazy Sam begin to plot their escape and attack. A battle ensues. Maximilian is killed, Hammond is killed, and George is injured in the process. At the same time, an array of bullets are fired at Dr. Hyde, but not a single one stops him. Josie McFarlane then decides that Rebecca Chandler and Professor Mortimer must leave the town. They must go out and tell the truth about the horrors of Nightfall. Meanwhile, the inmates set explosives into the mission and blow it up. But this does not stop Hyde's reign of terror. And that's Nightfall 4. And I could have seen it too, if I didn't chicken out at the front gate. Tune in to the next episode where we will discuss Nightfall 5 at Old Tucson Studios, if you dare.